The cafe was silent for a heartbeat that felt like forever. Forks froze midair, conversations stopped, and every pair of eyes turned toward the woman standing by the table. Estelle's fingers tightened around the handles of her son's wheelchair. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Across from her, the man she was meeting for the first time, a broad-shouldered single dad named Ryan, had just asked a question that cut through the air like glass. "Why did you bring your paralyzed kid here?" The words sounded cruel, sharp, and cold. Estelle felt her throat close up. She'd prepared herself for awkward small talk, maybe a failed spark, but not for this. Her son, Caleb, looked up at her with innocent confusion, his big blue eyes reflecting both fear and trust. Before she could speak, Ryan leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "I mean," he continued, softer now, "you must be the bravest woman I've ever met." And just like that, everything changed. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love to heal, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread hope through real, emotional stories like this one. Estelle had spent years building walls around her heart. She was the CEO of a successful design firm, known for her composure and perfectionism. But beneath the polished surface lived a mother who had fought battles most couldn't imagine. Caleb had been paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident when he was just 5. The drunk driver who caused it had fled the scene, leaving Estelle to pick up the pieces of their shattered world alone. Her husband couldn't bear the pressure and left within months. From that moment, Estelle had promised herself she'd never rely on anyone again. Her life became a routine of board meetings, physical therapy sessions, and quiet nights where Caleb's laughter was the only light that kept her going. She never thought she'd date again. But when a mutual friend convinced her to meet someone who understood what single parenthood really meant, she reluctantly agreed. That's how she found herself at that cafe, wearing a simple cream dress, her heart pounding as she pushed her son inside. Ryan looked nothing like the man she expected. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and black slacks, he had the kind of quiet strength that didn't need words. He stood up when she entered, his eyes softening at the sight of Caleb. Still, Estelle had seen that look before: pity, discomfort, even guilt. But Ryan's expression wasn't pity. It was something deeper. He, too, carried a story. Ryan was a construction manager, a man used to fixing broken things, except for the one thing he couldn't fix: his daughter Lily's absence. She had been 8 when cancer took her. Since then, he'd been raising his younger son alone. His world had narrowed to work, homework, and grief. When his friend suggested he go on a blind date, he had almost refused. But something inside him whispered that maybe it was time to stop just surviving. Now, sitting across from Estelle, watching her comfort her boy with quiet grace, he felt something stir in him he hadn't felt in years: hope. Estelle, however, misread his silence. She thought he was judging her, just like the others had. People had told her she shouldn't bring Caleb on a date. "It makes things complicated," they said. "You'll scare men away." But she couldn't hide her son. Caleb was part of her soul, her reason for breathing. She wouldn't apologize for that. When Ryan finally spoke, his question came out all wrong, too blunt, too raw. But when Estelle looked up, ready to defend her child, she saw sincerity in his eyes, not judgment. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, voice trembling. "That came out wrong. I just meant, you're incredible. Most people wouldn't have the courage to bring their child, to show who they really are right away. You did. That's rare." The tension broke. A faint smile touched Estelle's lips. Caleb looked up at Ryan and said, "Mom says we shouldn't hide the best parts of who we are." Ryan's throat tightened. "Your mom's right," he whispered. As they sat down, something shifted. The cafe buzzed back to life, but for them, time seemed to slow. The conversation flowed naturally, about their kids, their struggles, the nights they'd cried alone, and the mornings they forced themselves to keep going. Estelle laughed for the first time in months. Ryan listened like every word mattered. Caleb told Ryan about his dream of working at NASA someday, and Ryan promised to take him to a space museum. It wasn't romantic sparks or cinematic perfection. It was something more fragile, more real. Over the next few weeks, they kept meeting. Sometimes at the park, sometimes at Ryan's house, where his son Ethan and Caleb would play video games together. Ryan noticed how Estelle's face softened around children, how she never complained even when she was exhausted. Estelle noticed how Ryan always made time for both boys, even after long workdays. Slowly, the wounds they carried began to heal in each other's presence. But life doesn't heal without resistance. One evening, Estelle received an anonymous email at her company. Your CEO spends more time dating than leading. How unprofessional. Attached was a blurry photo of her and Ryan with the kids at a park. She felt her world tilt. Her position as CEO had taken years of sacrifice. She couldn't let gossip destroy it. In panic, she pulled away from Ryan. Her messages became short. Her excuses endless. Ryan, who had already lost one family, didn't know how to lose another. A week later, he showed up at her office unannounced. Standing in the glass-walled boardroom, he faced her as she tried to keep her composure. You don't have to protect yourself from me, he said quietly. I know what fear feels like. But maybe this time, you don't have to face it alone. Tears blurred Estelle's vision. For the first time in years, someone wasn't asking her to be perfect. Someone was asking her to be real. She took a trembling breath. Ryan, I'm scared. I've built everything on control. If I let someone in again, and it all falls apart, he stepped closer. Then we'll rebuild. Together. It was in that moment she realized love doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence. From that day on, things changed. They didn't rush. They learned to blend their families gently, slow dinners, park picnics, laughter in small moments. Caleb began walking short distances with braces, his determination stronger than ever. Ethan grew more confident too, learning empathy from watching his father care again. Estelle and Ryan weren't just two broken people finding comfort. They were two parents building a new world for their kids. Months later, they returned to the same cafe where it all began. Caleb, now standing with his walker, moved slowly to the table. The waiter smiled, remembering them. Ryan looked at Estelle, eyes filled with warmth. You know, he said, I still remember the first thing I said to you. She laughed softly. Oh, I'll never forget. He grinned. Then maybe it's time I say something better. He got down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Caleb gasped, covering his mouth with joy. Estelle, Ryan said, his voice trembling. Thank you for bringing your son that day. Because of that, I found mine again, my heart. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. The entire cafe, the same one that once went silent in judgment, now erupted in applause. Caleb rolled his walker forward and hugged Ryan tightly. Does this mean I get a dad again? He whispered. Ryan smiled through tears. Yes, buddy. You do. That night, Estelle realized the words that once pierced her heart had become the start of her healing. Sometimes the questions that sound harsh come from people still learning how to speak love again. And sometimes, the moments we fear most, being seen for who we really are, turn out to be the ones that save us.